And we are live. Welcome back to Phoenix Rising Spotlight on Business. I think y'all know who I am by this time. I'm Ken Ward, and you are in for an interview today. And I know everybody's like, well, you praise everybody who comes on the show because business owners are a special breed. And again, we are here to educate, inform, and inspire. And it's people that we're fortunate enough to find that will come on and allow us to learn about their journey. And we have a treat for you today. And I know some people are like, well, all you interview is lawyers. No, we interview other business owners, but there's a lot of lawyers around. And we're fortunate enough to find them. So before I introduce our guest, and we get to delve into her experience, and she gets to uh, inspire you all. Let's make sure we do what we all know to do here on this social media thing. If you're on YouTube, hit the like, hit the subscribe, hit the share. If you're on Facebook, hit the like, hit the share. Share this information. That's what people say. Information is power. We can debate that, but when you share and utilize information, you're going to be more powerful. You're going to get more done. So be a blessing to someone. If this information is a blessing to you, be a blessing to someone and share it. If you're on IG, you know what to do. Share it, direct message it, send it to somebody. We should be dropping in somebody's inbox right now, or DM, whatever y'all call it, but you know what I mean. But we should be sharing all this information. So with that said, now that we've gotten all the YouTube, all the subscribe out the way, let me introduce you to today's guest. She is going to wow you. If just listen to her story. She is going to wow you. Here we are with attorney Michelle Greer from out of Maryland. Are you practicing out of Baltimore City or Baltimore County?
Both.
Both. Okay. All right. Look at that. Look at that. She got the whole region for you. If y'all don't know, if you're not familiar with the area, that's the whole city. That's the surrounding counties. Then there's Anne Arundel County. I'm sure she goes out there for some cases in Prince George's County. So
Absolutely.
between Baltimore and Washington D.C., if you're looking for a skill set that you're about to learn about, Michelle Greer is probably going to be your person. So Michelle, welcome. First, like I say, welcome to the show. Welcome to the Phoenix Rising community. We are so ecstatic to have you today.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. And thank you so much. And happy holidays to you as well as your listeners.
All right, well, we're gonna jump right into it, Michelle. So we don't play no games here at Phoenix Rising. I tell everybody if they've watched the show, they've heard this. My brother and I collected comic books as children. Uh, I believe we're building the African American Black business class right here, brick by brick. And I think one of the things that goes into that is letting folks know your origin story. Every superhero has one. I tell business owners are in fact superheroes. So
Mhm.
we're and I got a chance to take a glimpse of your origin story. So I'm gonna give you kind of free range to tell your origin story because it's an origin story. I was bit by a radioactive spider, and Uncle Ben, talked to me like it's an origin story. So I'm not. Without further ado, Michelle, Attorney Greer, tell us your origin story.
So Ken, it's funny that you have began the conversation and talking about superheroes because I had to chuckle a bit because I have known that I would be an attorney since I was 7 years old. So I used to flip between the Justice League and Perry Mason, literally, as if I understood all of what Perry Mason did. But here's the thing. I always looked as attorneys as the true Justice League. They were always the true superheroes for me. And so from the age of 7, I knew that I wanted to be a community advocate. I knew that I wanted to be an attorney. And so From that point on, I think I was always arguing for the underdog, even as a child. But of course, life happens, and you don't always take the initial steps into your desired career. And so I had my children when I was in college. I began a family. I got married early, and so I became a paralegal first. That was my segue in to becoming an attorney. And so I've been in this profession for over 30 years. Again, I started in this legal profession. Many who are familiar with Baltimore, Maryland probably know Billy Murphy, Dwight Pettit, Warren Brown. I mean, these are some of the giants in our profession that have been around for a very long time. They're still, to this day, kicking the proverbial tail in civil rights and criminal justice. And so it was my distinct pleasure to be trained by and mentored by many of these individuals, as well as members of the bench. So I'll let you go ahead and ask some questions because, as you said earlier, I have so many pathways that I can take in
Right.
talking about how I became a business. So go ahead, shoot.
Well, let's go back to but you said you were a paralegal first. So you were in the law, like you ended up where you thought you were supposed to be at 7, but then you said, okay, I'm here, I'm working, but I need to take that next step. What made you take that next step? Where were you in your life? What was going on? What made you take that next step?
And so, being a paralegal actually was a wonderful segue into the legal profession. I highly recommend it for those who aren't too sure if they want to become attorneys, but they find themselves being drawn to the profession itself. It certainly gave me an opportunity to put my family first while still delving into a profession that I was very passionate about. And as I said earlier, I always knew that it's what I wanted to do. It gave me an opportunity to hone a lot of my skills, such as legal research, investigative skills, management, handling of files, case files, interviewing clients, everything that you're going to ultimately do as an attorney from a I guess foundation standpoint. Becoming a paralegal allowed me to do that, and I continue to do it for, as I said, well over 20 some years. And it wasn't until 2003 when my husband and I had the conversation that, okay, you can now go back to law school. If we're actually finishing my undergraduate at that time, because life initially was that I had a son who was an in utero stroke survivor, who was learning disabled. And so, although I was prepared once the children got to a certain age to begin to focus on my career, then that came up. And so I became an advocate for special education, and I was working with my son and fighting the school system for him and getting him placed in non-public placement. And then I applied back to be admitted into school to finish my undergraduate studies. Unfortunately, 3 days prior to receiving those acceptance papers, I lost my husband suddenly to a
Mm.
sudden massive stroke. He was 40 years old at that time. I was 32. We had two children, again, one that was learning disabled. My son was 11 at the time, my daughter was 7. And so my acceptance papers came through 2 days after he passed. And I that was March of 2003. May of 2003, I was back in school. And this time, not because it was something that I loved to do, it was because it was something that I now had to do. So I didn't really feel the same enthusiasm or excitement of just being a part of the Justice League per se Now I had a family to take care of truly as a single mom, as a young widow. And I went back to school. I worked full time. I went to school full time. I advocated for people who were going through recovering from stroke. I was a national ambassador for the Heart and Stroke Association, chaired the Power to End Stroke Task Force for the Baltimore, as well as the Mid Atlantic region for the Heart and Stroke Association. And so I was very, very, very busy in what I now understand to be my ministry. Again, I always knew that I would be an advocate, and everything in my life came together to continuously put me in spaces of advocating in my own experience what would ultimately be advocating for others in similar circumstances. And so that's what happened. 11 straight years I went through school, straight through law school. I graduated in 2014, and I became a late bloomer as an attorney, but certainly not a late bloomer in the profession itself.
Okay, we have to ask. Like, I can't be the only one wondering this. You're 32 years old. Your
Correct, when my
your,
husband passed.
your husband's 40.
Yes,
So at 32 years old, you become a widow,
yes.
and you
And let me
still.
just let me add one point in. My husband was my high school sweetheart. And so I dated him from the time I was 16. So I was with him for 19 years when he passed.
Wow. And you were still able to, I don't know whether this is the right word, but push forward and continue in school, going to school, and like I like I said, we're always looking for inspiration here. I think you have to go back and kind of tell us what, like, wouldn't that have been a good time just to give up and say, you know what, then maybe this isn't something I should be doing, and wouldn't that have been a good time to give up?
Let me just say this. The the horror of the experience of losing my husband is something that I can't put into words. Again, I mean, at that time, I had been with him longer on the face of the planet together with him than I had ever experienced being without him on the face of the planet. And so when I tell you my chest was full and it felt like I couldn't breathe, it felt like I couldn't breathe. Um, he suffered the sudden massive stroke. He had never been sick a day in his life. He was, worked for the federal government. He was a Marine as well. And so very cognizant of his health. And it's just something that we could not, have foreseen. And I remember waking up in the morning with the children planning to go on our regular routine of getting them out to school, and my son said to me, "Mom, I want to say bye to Dad." So I said, "Okay, hurry up, say bye to Dad." He was in the shower, and when he came out, we got in the car. We made it maybe halfway down the block, and he says, "Ma, Daddy's must be really really sleepy because he's on the floor in the bathroom sleep." And so I said, "Sleep how? Do you mean sleeping like in the bed?" He says, "Yes, sleeping like in the bed." And I turned back around and I found him collapsed on the bathroom floor. And at that point, Ken, I knew for all intent and purposes he was gone then. I mean, his body was truly dead weight. He was, salivating from the mouth. And I just remember praying to God at that point, please, don't do this. Don't take him like this. And I pleaded with John, just like if any part of you is in there, I need you to fight. I need you to help me. I can't even turn. I couldn't even lift him. I couldn't even lift him. And so I felt his body lift. I know that it was God intervening, and certainly whatever part of him was still in there fighting. And we were able to get him to the hospital where he laid in the ER literally for 13 hours before he was even seen by a neurologist. And so that experience with John pushed me once again into a space of advocacy. I filed an action against the hospital. I became an advocate for stroke awareness and prevention because, in my world, I always encourage people wherever your tragedy is, it is intended to be your testimony. And so there was no way in the world that I was going to allow my husband's death to be in vain. His life lost had to mean lives being saved. And so that's what my children and I did together. At 7 and 11, the children testified on Capitol Hill to members of Congress about the Federal Stop Stroke Act bill at that time. And I taught them that you don't roll over, and whine about things that you can't change in life. You use them as opportunities to empower you because that is what my mother taught me.
That's a good lesson.
Yeah.
That
But
that's
you're, but,
that's
but you're right, Ken. When I look back in hindsight now, all I can say is that I knew what I had to do. I had two children who were dependent upon me, and on many levels, did I want to give up? Believe me, I did. I did. I wanted to give up. There were times that I felt like I couldn't breathe anymore. And quite frankly, didn't want to keep breathing, right? Because I had lost my life's partner. Death was no stranger to me. My father was murdered when I was 10 years old. And so here I found myself having to walk this journey with my children, a nightmare that I had tried to outlive, pray myself out of. Do you understand? Because
mm-hmm.
death is like a grim reaper to me. And so this for me was the ultimate nightmare for me to experience this once again, um, and to experience it with my children. But it was my children who gave me strength to keep fighting. It was God Almighty Himself that gave me the courage to keep pushing forward, even when I felt like I didn't have it in me to do it.
So we're working towards 11 years, towards more than 11 years, but we're just going to talk about the schooling. 11
Yes.
years towards a dream. Tell us what that was. And don't be afraid. We shamelessly plug our alma maters here on Phoenix Rising because so don't be afraid to plug your alma maters. But so what was that 11 years? What was that 11 years like?
Grueling. It was grueling. And let me just say this. There was one point in my second year because I had other things. My mother-in-law passed during the course, maybe a year and a half after my husband did, and so there were other challenges that were presenting themselves. My son again was learning disabled, so I was fighting with the school system. I had my own health issues that I was going through at that time as well, and so school for me was grueling. I went back as an adult student. I went to University of Baltimore, where most of those of us who are late bloomers have found ourselves at University of Baltimore, and it was first off, it was challenging for me to be in the classroom setting with young people who were, for all intent and purposes, my children's ages at some point in time, you know?
hmm
And so, and the wonderful thing about University of Baltimore is that I was surrounded by adult students, and so that was very encouraging for me. But law school in particular was very challenging for me. Studying for the LSAT, sitting for the LSAT several times, because if you don't pass it, you try again, right? And so make no mistake about it, getting into law school is challenging. Staying in law school is also challenging. We're at a in a day and era where we're now having the conversations about systemic racism, and so I'm not ashamed to say that systemic racism is definitely one of the things that we all as minority students experienced in going through the process in law school. And so you're up against a multitude of things aside from the academic
hmm
requirements and the strenuous regimen in terms of the studies that you have to undergo. it was very hard. And I remember telling my law professors in my first year, I would go in and I would say, okay, you know what, maybe I got to be this go round, but here's my A. And I would bring in my daughter's report card, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And say, listen, this is not the only thing that I'm doing here. And so law school is not the only thing or indication of excellence, right, that's happening in my life, okay? Because people don't know what you're going through in the
Right.
backdrop. And guess what? They don't care. They don't care.
Right. So you said you took the LSAT a couple of times, and this is specifically for a population of folks who are trying to get into professional school, be it law school, be it medical school. I think they need to hear this part because I think the LSAT and the MCAT are, I mean, they're designed to be deterrents, but I think they need somebody to tell them that they don't have to be. I guess where that goes. So, how many times did you take the LSAT?
Yes, absolutely. So I took the LSAT two
Mm-hmm.
times, and and I was determined. I was determined. But you're absolutely correct for those of us who are in the adult world with adult responsibilities, where you don't necessarily have the time or the resources to buckle down and pay for programs to help you study to take the, because guess what, it's a there is an art to taking these tests. By
Mm-hmm.
design, they were created to keep us out of
Mm-hmm.
consideration, if you will. And so there is a methodology to it all, but we don't always have the time or the resources to take these types of courses. And so what I would suggest is to do exactly what I did, which is to buy as many study materials as I could. If you can't afford to buy it, you go to the library, get as many, old materials as you can, and just continue to practice, 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 practice.
Mm-hmm.
I remember even after I took the LSAT, when it came time for me to apply to law school and going through the admission process, that was another challenge because there's a curve, if you will, and a median grid that they're looking for to not so much let us in, but to keep us out. Okay. And so for me, I was right there on the border of it in getting into law school. And so I initially received several rejections for admission and I thank you actually for having this conversation because it's not often that we get to share these stories of what is happening in the background. But
Mm-hmm.
guess what? These are the stories that matter. It's not just the stories of the achievements on the other side of it. The journey in the process is where the true success stories lie.
Right.
And so for me, having this kind of conversation is just dynamic, and I thank you for that. But going back, getting into law school was a challenge because I was right there in the smack dead in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember getting the letters of rejection two times. Two times I was rejected from the same law school, from University of Baltimore. And I considered, and other people said to me, listen, just apply to another university. Where was I going to go besides University of Maryland? But UB was already my alma mater, of course, and I felt most comfortable there. It was certainly most convenient for me being a single mom at that particular juncture. And so I remember going and literally crying on my mother's lap, because I was just so drained. I was drained from taking the LSAT, two times. I was drained from having to write these personal statements over and over again and asking for, admittance over and over again. And I remember my mother saying to me, listen, it's okay for you to cry, get it all out. And when you get done, you go and you show them exactly who they're dealing with. And when she said that to me, I did exactly that. I did all of my research on the Law School Admission Council, all of the discussions, the research, the cases surrounding failure to admit minority students into law school. And I did all of my homework. I was already, because I was experienced. Let's just be to talk about that. I was
Hmm.
already experienced having been in this profession for a very long time. And so for those that didn't do the research on my background, shame on them.
Right.
Okay. But by the time I came to the table, I was already prepared to file a lawsuit against the University of Baltimore. Okay. And so I brought the law school admission count, went all the way to the top, the law school admission count, and brought it back down to say to them, okay, either you're going to allow me in this door or we're about to have some problems. Okay. Yeah.
Wait a minute. Hold up. Stop. Stop.
Yeah.
Hey, Michelle, you tell me you played bully ball with UB?
Yeah. Yes, I did. Yes, I did. Yes, I did. And let me just say this. I can remember, Ken. I remember some of my, because like I said, I know the heavy hitters in this profession, and so
Yes.
people say, Michelle, listen, you've been doing this. Why don't you just get one of the attorneys to write some letters over there, and this will be a done deal? I said, absolutely not. Why would I become a part of the very problem that I'm trying to eradicate?
Right.
That's the point. I'm not trying to get in these doors off of favors. I'm pushing these doors open because I deserve to be here, because I worked hard to be here. And the last thing I want is to keep those doors sealed behind me to some others that look just like me because they don't have contacts of over 20 years like I have. Absolutely not. So when it was all said and done, UB responded by saying, listen, it wasn't your LSAT score that kept you out of being admitted. And so I responded to them, well, would it surprise you that I already have emails showing that that's exactly what the reason would be? Do you think that I would come to the table to play ball like this and not be prepared to win with a slam dunk? That was the end of that. Next thing you know, I was admitted, and that was the end of that.
So hold up. Wait a minute.
I'm,
Stop.
I'm,
Stop. Wait.
I'm almost disappointed. I'm almost disappointed that I didn't get to bring my first case. Yeah.
Wait, hold up.
Yes,
So
I'm
I mean,
almost
again,
disappointed.
I gotta remember. So sometimes I forget. I get so enthralled with my guests. I forget that I'm not even doing this for me. Like I'm doing this. I'm doing this for other people.
Yes.
But wait a minute. So you are telling me, like I was first going to go with people. I was like, Phoenix Rights Committee. Look, she didn't take no for an answer. We went way past not taking no for an answer.
I was
We
prepared.
went back. We went to, and folks that know me know how I joke. We went to Michelle Greer told the University of Baltimore Law School, meet me in the playground at 3 o'clock.
That's right. That's
Because
right.
I'm knocking you out.
Yes. Yes.
but
Absolutely.
but like I say, if this doesn't inspire, like no is an answer for the other guy.
That's
No
right.
should never be the answer for you.
That's right. That's right.
And there. Uh, all right, so hold on. So now this is a good place to break because we're probably halfway through. Let me check my time. So this is where I tell everybody, come on, content like this, and you can't hit the subscribe button down below. You can't hit the share. Now, you have a friend who's trying to get into law school, med school, trying to start a business, and you don't think that just right here, we haven't even gotten to Michelle's telling us why she decided to go out on her own yet. Like we're 30 minutes in, and there's so much story, so much information that you've been given. You better, like, I'm not even asking anymore. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, share this, because I'm fired up, and it's hard to fire me up. So now YouTube is going to play, because we're going to get monetized. YouTube's going to play a commercial. We'll be back after the commercial. All right, YouTube play that commercial. Whatever your algorithm is, you probably should buy that. But yeah, so all right, Michelle. So all right, so I want to get past UB, but I'm so stuck on You just bossing your way. That's what now. That's what you just bossing your way into UB law. I need to stay here for just a minute. Now, well, obviously you graduated, but was there any residual effects um, in the law school, or did they just kind of let you in and kind of forget? But there was any residual effects in class because if you've been in law school class, if you've been and you understand the curve, that you know that there's ways that they can put pressure on you to maybe that you don't want to be there. Or was it like, okay, you're in and we want to just, we don't want no problems, so we're just gonna forget about it, let you do your thing, and what happens happens. Or did you feel any residual effects from, pretty much
Uh,
smacking them in the mouth?
yeah, I didn't feel any immediate residual effect of it. Um, because I think, at the end of the day, what's happening in one office is happening in that office.
Okay.
But I think that once I was admitted, then I'm on a whole different playing field now. Do you see what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so I had a whole nother struggle to deal with. Um, you know, first off, let me start by saying in the evening program, which is the equivalent of the evening program for those that don't know, in law school is pretty much consistent with a full-time schedule in undergraduate studies. And so automatically you're taking 12 plus courses. Whereas if you're an undergrad, that's considered full-time. Anything less than that, part-time. And so the evening program consisted maybe of 80 some students, somewhere between 60 and 80 some students. And from that group, there were maybe 15 of us African American students in the evening program, if that. And then you have what is two classes, if you will. So you may have, let's just say A and B. So you have group A, group B. So even once you do that, then those numbers are divided up even more. First year in law school, you're kind of on probation. This is a whole new experience. You already know that the second semester, some faces are not going to come back. You know, by the second year, there are going to be even more faces that are no longer there. And so when I say I was on a completely different playing field now, I, along with those that look like me, okay, we were on a whole new playing field now, and very similar to, say, the Tuskegee Airmen, if you will, okay, where we understood that we're in this thing together and that we basically have to adopt a mindset that we're not leaving any of us behind. And so that's what we did. And when I tell you we were confronting issues like if we put our hands up to be called upon in class, I literally experienced it where the professor didn't even acknowledge that I raised my hand. You had some students who experienced being called out about their hairstyles and things like that. Okay, so we were dealing with another beast of racism inside these walls that you should never in a million years have to be dealing with in this day and age. But we were, but we were on top of being graded differently.
Mm.
Okay, and so I, of course, um, mobilized with the other, Black law students there. We had, for all of the years that I was there, a very, very strong Black Law Student Association. And so, for those who are interested in becoming lawyers, I would encourage you to get involved with that organization early on, even in your undergraduate studies. Because guess what? It's going to be that hand holding, that joining of that team that's going to give you the power and the courage to get through the law school experience because it's grueling, not just academically. Yeah. So I didn't experience it then. It wasn't an immediate thing. But it didn't take too long before I started becoming, I guess, a troublemaker, because I
You look
was
like a
all
troublemaker, Michelle.
yeah, I was always complaining about something, always doing, sending emails. I mean, I was sending emails just for certain things. Like, I had a problem with being called by my first name, for an example. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
in a professional environment. You don't know me that well. Don't
Mm-hmm.
call me Michelle, and don't end the an email off by just signing your name. And so it just got to the point that whenever I sent out an email to somebody, they responded by copying other professors and the deans. And I said, oh my Lord, am I that popular around here that they're on my emails? So, but all of us, I mean, I'm very proud to say that my, graduating class and the two before and after, all of us came from a similar mindset, you know, and we all are dealing with a lot of these same issues right now, and it's part of what we battle every day, and advocating for others and ourselves inside of the profession itself.
All right, so we got to jump to again, and I can't stress enough about. I just want to recap. Um, Widowed at 32, 11 years in school, uh, raising two children, working full time. I'm gathering, advocating for
Working
special
full,
ed, advocating for
yes.
special ed, which is near and dear to my heart because I spent 10 years as a special education teacher in Baltimore City. Um, so yeah, and we still haven't got to, I don't know, her business. And so, seeing that the whole show is designed, Phoenix Rising, the whole is about designed about building that African American business class, and encouraging people to take their superpower and go into business and not be afraid. So let's fast forward to when you decided to, because you have a very unique practice area and a very unique take on your practice area. So let's go. Let's jump to when you decided to jump out there and hang your own shingle. Um, Tell us about that process.
So my experience is unique indeed because I don't think I ever worked for anyone full time. I mean, even when I worked for firms, I always worked as a independent contractor, and I guess it's because I always I've always believed that we should always, as people of color, we should always have some source of income that's directly attributed to our own gifts, our own skill set. We can never find ourselves in a position of completely dependent upon someone else for our source of abundance. And so I've always worked as an independent contractor, even as a paralegal. And so I knew from the very beginning that I would always hang my own shingle, and I looked for opportunities to work for smaller law firms as opposed to larger law firms because I wanted to get a taste of that world. You know, um, there you don't have like the requirements of billable hours. For an example, when you work for larger law firms, you have to commit to bringing in so many hours. But guess what? You're lining somebody else's pocket. I wanted to experience the hustle of lining my own pocket, if you will, and not that of someone else.
Mm-hmm.
I also wanted to experience a more up close and personal relationship with the community that I served, in essence. And so, being a sole practitioner as an attorney has given me the blessing of those things.
Okay. So how what when did you open your doors? And was there any after all you've been through, that probably was a small thing, but was there any hesitation in doing that?
So, again, because I was kind of used to being self-employed, semi, if you
Mm-hmm.
will, quasi way. I wasn't afraid of it, but I will say that while I was in law school, I worked for a law firm in Pikesville. I worked for an attorney, Mr. Jeffrey London, who was actually became like a father figure and mentor to me, and he was very supportive of my um, having a work schedule in the firm that allowed me to prioritize my education and my family. And so once I finished school, immediately I was in a partnership, which is something that a lot of attorneys, they have to work their way up as
Hmm.
associate attorneys and so forth. I didn't have that at all. I mean, I stepped right into a partnership already, and I had eventually planned to hang my shingle, but I was kind of pushed into the water of it sooner than I anticipated because he retired.
Okay.
Okay, but the blessing of it was that I walked into my own practice already having a client base established because I
Hmm.
was already working in that industry. And of course, because he retired, all of those cases in family law and so forth, he immediately sent those things to me, and I was handling it anyway,
Hmm.
partner with him. And so I didn't have the proverbial sink or swim experience that a lot of new entrepreneurs have. Um, but let me say that I think that that is the driving force of entrepreneurship. You have to have the mindset, and it is what gives us the success stories, is that sinking is not an option. Just like no is not an option. Okay? And so that's my answer. I knew that my family depended upon my swimming and swimming well.
All right. All right. And swim you did.
And I did, and I'm still swimming today. Still swimming today. But
So,
but there are can some so there's some things in the backdrop, that I'm still, even as an entrepreneur, and even as a sole practitioner, as an attorney, we still, and in fact, I was involved in a conversation earlier about this. Just because we have law degrees, just because we have a license to practice, it doesn't mean that we are not still up against issues, like racism and gender bias. And, so we still have all of these layers of things that we're dealing with, even within our profession. And so when I go to court, for an example, what does it mean for me as a black woman standing in a courtroom with a male counterpart or Caucasian counterpart on the other side or on the bench looking at me? Okay, so it's difficult. So when you think in terms of having your own practice as an attorney, you have to consider all of these things, because if you're in a firm that's well established and they have billable hours constantly coming in, guess what? Your salary is being paid. Okay? So you don't have to deal with a lot of the BS, right? That you may have to deal with when you have your shingle hung. Okay?
mhm.
There are a lot of things that you have to deal with, and you have to pick and choose your battles because the battles are going to be many.
All right. So, one of the things we like to do here at Phoenix Rising Community, like so, we talked about your origin story, which is amazing. Then we talked about, like, I mean, every time next time I'm driving past UB, I'm just gonna laugh because they got strong arms. Who knew? They don't. That's not in their brochure. That's not in their brochure. I know a
No,
couple people. I know a couple people who've applied to UB recently. That's not in the brochure. Um, but tell us about your practice, and now tell us about your business. Tell us about what you're doing.
okay,
Um,
okay. And so I practice primarily family law. I don't do any criminal law any longer. I do family law. I do estate planning, and I have recently expanded my business to include divorce coaching as well.
Now, divorce coaching,
Yes.
what is that?
I know everyone asks, what's the divorce coaching? So the best way that I can describe it is it's what we do as family law attorneys anyway. Meaning that, believe it or not, in family law, there's a lot of hand holding, there's a lot of assisting clients in some of the non legal issues that have to be addressed in order for them to be very strategic in moving forward through the divorce process itself. And so I do have clients who I may not represent. For an example, I have a lot of divorce clients who are in jurisdictions that I don't practice in, such as, let's say, DC, for an example.
Mhm.
I will assist those individuals in locating the best attorney for them. And believe me, attorneys are a dime a dozen, so there are plenty of us. But finding the perfect one for you can be like looking for a needle in a haystack, if you will. And so I assist my divorce coaching clients with that. But I also provide them with litigation support, settlement strategies, negotiation strategies, things that their attorneys probably won't do because most attorneys have the mindset that they don't have time to do it.
Okay. All right. All right. So we are also like to build networks here. And so, and I'm gonna stop doing it, but what's on your whiteboard? Like, what is it that you are looking at? Like, I really need somebody to do X. If I can get X done, I could move, I could scale, or I could go a step higher, but we're always looking to improve our networks, to grow our network. So there's somebody, maybe somebody else who's watching this who might be like, hey, I do that. Like, let me reach out. So what's on your whiteboard right now that you really could
So,
use help with?
thank you for that, Ken. So, what's on my whiteboard is growing my divorce coaching practice.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why I say that is that family law is a very unique opportunities for attorneys to make a difference on a more personal level. And all too often, when you have families going through the litigation process, relationships that deserve opportunities to be preserved are lost. And
Mm.
so my goal, and I call it my ministry, is to begin to provide families with the resources and also the support that's needed to preserve the relationships, i.e., relationships with their children on the other side of the divorce process that will otherwise be lost because it is very hard to preserve when you're fighting inside of a courtroom. And so that is what I am trying to do at this point. I have a group that I offer for women every other week called Freedom Fridays that I do. It's 100% volunteer for me, where women come together in a very private setting to support one another and to learn how to move through those emotional issues that create litigation in the first place. Believe it or not, Ken, more often than not, people who are going through divorce, they're fighting in court. They're putting out between $10,000 and $25,000 for attorney's fees to fight over emotional issues. Period. And no attorney is going to say, "Hey, listen, you really need to focus on coming up with a schedule that's going to work for you, for your children in the long haul because none of this other stuff really matters. You can get more property back, you can get more money back, but you can't get this back."
Mm-hmm.
Attorneys don't say that because, this is their bread and butter. Okay. But I believe that we are uniquely situated to try to preserve families. And so I offer that group every other Friday. And I'm in the process now for my male clients and offering a very similar group because the men have expressed a desire and a need to have that type of support network in place as well. And so that's what I'm able to do inside of the divorce coaching that I don't have a lot of the flexibility to give in representing clients directly as an attorney inside of the case.
Okay. Well, yeah. Well, definitely. If anybody can assist, please reach out. Michelle, give or if somebody's unfortunately getting a divorce or yeah, divorce is something I stay away from. I don't know whether people say it's good, people say it's bad. I just see it as an upheaval, no matter how you do it.
Well,
Um,
it's a new beginning, Ken. That's what I
that,
say. Embrace it as a new beginning. So, for anyone that would like to reach out to me, you can find me on the transformational divorce specialist on my website, which is at www the transformational divorce coach. You can also find me on Instagram under my name, Michelle Greer Esquire, and on Facebook as well, Michelle Greer Esquire.
So we're building a reading list. Like we're trying to build the most impactful reading list that we can find. Now, as an attorney, you've read a lot of books, and in 11 years of study, you read a lot of books. But is there one book that you would suggest that inspired you, or for you, I guess, validated everything that you were doing, and and let you know that I'm gonna be there?
So there are many that I have read. One that I'm currently reading is President Obama's book, The Promised Land. And I'm telling you that that book, I haven't been able to put it down yet because it's almost speaking my story on multiple levels. Many may not know that President Obama never intended necessarily to be a part of politics, but he was always a community service advocate at heart from the very beginning. And it led him ultimately into politics inside the belly of the beast, if you will, a place that he never quite wanted to be, but it took him there. And so that is my story as well, and many of your viewers' stories as well. Oftentimes, we're going to find ourselves called to go to places that we don't want to be in, and places that we never thought we would ever have to be. But don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to answer the call. Know that you have exactly what you need in order to fulfill that purpose. And so that's what I'm reading right now.
Oh, fantastic. So I always ask this question directly. I almost forgot to ask it of you because I think you covered it and I was just so enthralled. But we always ask each guest, what is your why? And what we look at as the why is what gets you up every morning to do what you do. And so I'm asking you directly, what is your why?
My clients, my clients is what gets me up every single day to do what I do. You know, my clients aren't just numbers to me. I remember each and every one of their phone numbers, believe it or not. I ask whenever I have clients, I want to see pictures of their children. I want to see pictures of their children because I don't ever want to forget that there are innocent people involved in things that I am directly having an impact upon. Okay. And so that's what gets me up every single day is knowing that I am making a difference in somebody else's life. And they depend on me to do that job, to bring everything I have to the table, to treat their cases like I would my own. And I do. They become members of my family. And I'm very thankful for that opportunity. They bless me every day. There are times, Ken, that I've had some clients who have come in the door and I've had to say to them, listen, you're in the wrong place. Where whatever it is that they're needing, it doesn't matter how much they're paying for it. I'm not the attorney for it.
Mm.
And then there's some people that think that they're coming in to get a divorce, but they really came in to get a book. They didn't know they came in to get a book, but ultimately I end up putting a book in their hand and their
Uh-oh.
marriage ends up being saved. Okay.
Mm.
And then there's some who've come in the door and they thought they came to me for help, but really God had something in store for me. But they've blessed me. And perhaps they didn't come on board as a client themselves, but guess what? Later on, at some point in time, they have referred a client. Me, I remember talking to you earlier about the group that I'm doing every other Friday. That came from a client who was a divorce client, and God revealed to me that this woman was going to be very instrumental in making a difference in other women's lives who were going through divorce. On
Mm.
the other side of her divorce, now she and I do this group Freedom Fridays. Every other Friday, the group has been growing throughout the pandemic. But do you see what I'm saying? That's the blessing. And so as entrepreneurs, we have to know that our shingles are out not just because of what we think it gives to us monetarily, but because of what it does for our lives and other people's lives as well. Every time I help a person, I'm helping myself every single time. And so this is our investment in our community. This is our investment in ourselves. It's an investment in generations to come. When my children were very young, one of the things they would always come to me and say is, I can't seem to find a job. And I said, well, if you can't find the job that you want, then create it. Create it. It's just as simple as that. And so that's what I would say to everybody. Entrepreneurship is feasible, it's attainable, it's recommended. We should be using our skills and our natural gifts to make humanity a better place. That's why I do it, and that's why I encourage everyone else to do it.
And that should be the last word. Unfortunately, we're on the internet, and I need people to hit the share like button and do all that stuff. But I'm going to cut it right there for some of our social media. But if I, come on, folks. I mean, Phoenix Rising from out of the ashes. That's
Yeah.
that's what this means. And
Yes.
if you have not been inspired, and I say this at the end of every show because I bring on some fantastic guests. Like that's why I say it at the end of every show. Like y'all think like the folks when you talk about inspiration, when you talk about the folks that are coming and allowing me to interview them on this show, have all been amazing. And when I say origin story, when I try to communicate to all the folks who this reaches and touches, you are your own superhero.
Yes.
We all have origin stories. We all, and maybe you haven't identified yours, you haven't realize what yours is, but it's happening in front of you. It's happening to you, and all you have to do is make the decision. All that voice in the back of your head that keeps telling you you need to do this. You need to do this. This show came out of that voice. Like you need to bring business owners together. You need because this is important. This is important, and it just kept nagging at me and nagging at me, and now I'm doing it, and I'm just meeting great people by doing it. Um, and so I've already said too much because we should have ended it. Michelle should be the last word. So when you cut this up, a super producer, make sure that you end it where Michelle is the last word. Cut me out of everything past that. Cut me out. But on the YouTube, we got to run the whole thing. So hit the share button and be a blessing to somebody.
Ken,
Uh,
you're doing an awesome job. I can't thank you enough for this. When you reached out, I had no idea what to expect, but I am telling you, what you are doing is phenomenal. Phenomenal. And I would encourage if any of your listeners need help with getting businesses started, I help to create businesses as well. So any of them can feel free to reach out to me for some guidance on how to get their businesses established. I'm also looking for people who are in related fields. So if you have, people who are therapists, for an example, guess what? I need you. I need people who have support services that can help in some of these areas for my divorce clients. If you're in accounting, whatever field you have, reach out. Let's begin to utilize this wonderful platform that you are creating to join hands and to provide the services that are needed in our communities and also to build each other's businesses.
All right, that's the last word. Phoenix Rising community, we are out. We are out. Thank you, Attorney Michelle Greer. Thank you very much for your time. We appreciate you, and we're so excited that you decided to spend a few hour or so with us. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We definitely appreciate you, and we look forward to supporting your business and um, you growing your advocacy across the state of Maryland. So thank you again. At
Thank you.
Phoenix Rising Community, we are out.